Hey guys, so last week I posed the question, do you have any questions? And I got an amazing response to that, which makes me so happy that so many of you are working on your body and trying to improve things because I got some incredible questions. Now, I have all the questions listed out here, so I'm going to start at the beginning in the order they came in, and I'm going to run through those and answer all those questions for you. And on a lot of the questions, I've got great articles that will give you more information, free resources, and so I'm going to be linking all of those in my stories, as well as the live link under my bio. So there's a little clickable link there, and that will take you to my website, and I'll make sure to list all the free resources there. So if you don't see your question today, because it is a lot of questions, and I'm not going to be able to get through them all today, then look for those next week, and I will keep going until I get through all the questions. Okay, so let's dive in and see how many we can get to today while the kids are on a walk with their dad. Okay, so question number 1. I'm almost 63, fit, but my hips are crunchy sometimes, or they just ache. I do wheel pose and bridges, squats, deadlift. Still, is it just an age? Even though I have been exercising my entire life since I was 14, I feel great otherwise. Love your channel. Yay, I'm so glad you love my channel. Thank you. All right, so let's talk a bit about this. So all the exercises that you listed are in the sagittal plane. Okay, so when we think about planes of motion, think about it as, like a 3D versus 2D versus 1D. So something is flat, 2D versus 3D dimensional. Well, planes of motion are moving through that 3D. And so we have a sagittal plane, which divides us this way. So when you think of wheel pose, you think of squats, you think of deadlift, that is in this plane of motion. So Dean Somerset has an amazing quote that I really love. And it is, whenever you work a joint, particularly the hip, in one plane of motion, it becomes an elbow. Okay, and so that is something that we can really take to heart here. I love the simplicity of that when we think about planes of motion. So I don't necessarily think age equals pain. Okay, actually I don't think that at all. I'm a physical therapist. Wouldn't have gone to school if I think that. I do think that the patterns of movement that we've been in and our workout programs do catch up with us. Okay, so age gives things time to tell if they are working. So I think that's a big one here. And from the exercises you listed, they are all in sagittal plane. And so usually if I get somebody in and their workout has been in nothing but the sagittal plane, I am going to get them working in transverse plane, which is this way, thinking about cutting your body in half. You can think about that as your rotation plane as well. So for the hip, that would be external rotation and internal rotation. So we're talking about things like the piriformis, things like the anterior fibers of the glute medius, things that rotate us in and rotate us out. And then the other plane of motion we have is our frontal plane. So that is dividing us this way. And that is where you're thinking abduction and adduction. So that is thinking just going straight out and straight back in. So like medial fibers of glute medius, adductors, even though muscles do a lot. They're not just sitting in pure planes of motion, but you get the idea of what I'm saying. So depending on how long someone has been working sagittal plane and what type of muscle imbalances that we have there, we're gonna need to switch up that workout plan. So it might be that we can just add in a couple extra things that help with that, or it might be that we need to completely ditch all sagittal plane exercises and do nothing but work frontal and transverse plane for a little while, and then they're gonna feel amazing. Okay, so I have a free resource for you. It is a 6-part free Happy Hips educational series, and it's named Happy Hips for a reason, because it's to make your hips happy. So if you will hop in there, like I said, I will link it in stories in the live link in the bio. If you will hop in there and run through that 6-part series, and you're gonna leave with a lot more education on what's actually going on at your hip, because I don't believe that that age has to equal pain. Okay, I do believe that age gives us a chance to see how our workout program has been going, and so I think that can be a little bit eye-opening when things start to catch up with us, so to speak. All right, so give that a shot, see how much more you learn, and hopefully that will shed a little bit more light on why your hips might possibly be hurting. Okay, question number 2 is, hey, just wondering if the hormonal phase of the menstrual cycle impacts prolapse symptoms and risk. I always feel stronger in follicular phase, but not sure if I'm imagining it. Okay, so you are completely normal. Almost every single person I've ever worked with can tell a difference between when they are in different phases of their menstrual cycle. So most women do feel stronger when you feel stronger. So you're completely normal. Most of the women that I work with will either notice increased SI joint pain or increased prolapse symptoms, maybe increased leaking right before ovulation, during ovulation. Or right before their period. So right when those hormones are getting ready to shift, they will notice an increase during ovulation or right before their period. And so you're completely normal, so absolutely normal. I do like to think about that as we are only as strong or as weak as where we bottom out with our strength. So if you tend to be one of those people that are loosey-goosey, so you have a lot of flexibility in your ligament system, and that has a lot to do with genetics, then you're gonna need to be a whole lot stronger than someone who doesn't have that ligamentous play in their system. So just something to keep in mind when you think about the different phases. So if you do notice a big swing or a big change, you might be having a big hormonal change within your cycle, or it could be that you have that increased ligament laxity through genetics. Okay, completely normal though. Isn't it nice to just know you're normal? All right, question number 3, how to properly perform a kegel. Okay, so I did a full video series on this, which I think will be really easy just to watch that to sum this up. There's written words and there's a video series. So I am going to link that article into bio, live link, and stories for swipe up for easy finding as well. So just check that out. I think that will completely answer that question. All right, but let me know if you have any more questions about that. Question number 4, how can I fix my prolapse after 2 deliveries, and why does my vagina suck in air while doing down dog? Okay, so this is a very complicated question. All right, so I work with a lot of women who are trying to fix their prolapse. It's never a simple answer. It's never like, oh yeah, do bridges and clams and some kegels, and oh wow, you're magically fixed. We usually have to unpack a whole lot of things. We have to look all the way from their feet to what their arch strength is doing, all the way through their hips, their adductors, that deep inner core system, their breathing, their head and neck posture, even down to how much mid-back flexibility they have. So the good news is that usually in the process of trying to improve their prolapse, we help their neck tightness. So there's all sorts of great benefits that come from this. It is a bit overwhelming at times because the pelvic floor is in the middle. It's in the middle. It helps to stabilize our spine. It helps to stabilize our SI joints, our pelvis. It plays a bigger role than just holding up our pelvic organs. So it plays and interacts with our whole entire body, because our whole entire body is connected through this big fascial network. Okay, so we're not just isolated muscles in certain spots, which is often why, if you've been doing your pelvic floor exercises and you're not really noticing a huge difference in your prolapse or in your leaking, you've got to look at the rest of the body, because we're all interconnected. The only issue is that can be a little complicated. Okay, so my advice for you is, if you have a great pelvic floor PT, a women's health PT in your area to help get you started on the right track for this, I would absolutely work with them. I think that getting eyes and hands on you is amazing. If you don't have one, or right now while we're going through all this craziness, if you don't have one that's doing home visits or telehealth, then we have an online program where we watch video of you doing exercises, look at posture, all that good stuff, to be able to give you feedback, to be able to direct you on what to do. So without seeing you move, without seeing you breathe, I can't tell you where you need to go and what you need to work on. It is amazing what you can see when you start looking at someone's posture. You start watching them breathe, you start watching them move, and you're like, oh wow, your mid-back is really, really stiff. Your breathing system is all up into your neck and shoulders. Well, you really clench your glutes. Okay, here are the things that we need to work on. So until you start to unpack some of that stuff, I wouldn't know what rabbit hole to send you down on for what's holding you back from this improving. Now, a lot of women do get natural improvement of their prolapse, which is pretty cool. And going back to like question number 1, I think sometimes some of the things that hold us back from improving have been things that have been issues our whole life. Like if you tend to get knee pain, you tend to get piriformis issues, whatever, you tend to get some neck pain. That neck pain could be related to why your prolapse isn't improving. So I think that when you open that, I'm gonna call it Pandora's box, when you open that Pandora's box, you often find lots of things and they're all contributing, which is really cool though, because you get to fix your whole body, which I think is pretty cool, because it's gonna leave you feeling better later. Okay, let me finish, make sure I hit all the points that I wanted to hit on that. All right, so work with somebody, get some help. This is usually not something that you can fix on your own or from just watching a couple exercise videos. It's gonna take a lot of work. Okay, the last part of that question about air in your vagina, that is called queefing. It has a name, and Anna Tina, which is one of the expert physical therapists in the group I just mentioned, that helps me look at women's videos and things like that. She is a pelvic floor physical therapist in Switzerland, and she is amazing, and I love her, and she is an expert that has a little slightly different knowledge than me, which is one of the reasons why I brought her on board, because no one can know everything, which is why it's important to have a team. And so she wrote an article on queefing, why it happens. Usually it has to do with weakness, pelvic floor muscle weakness, core strength weakness, because when you go down into that down dog, or you go down into, headstands or whatever is causing that displacement of pressure, your muscular system should help hold that pressure. And if it does not help hold that proper pressure, then you're going to get lots of movement, and then that's going to allow air to move in and out. All right, so she wrote a great article on that, and I am going to link that in stories and bio for you so that you can check that out. Okay, question number 5. This is a question on interstitial cystitis, so painful bladder syndrome. I think I have it, my mom had it. It is really interesting to me how so much of what I see and we deal with is genetic. Our tendencies, just like you would think about that same genetic tendency for somebody to have heart disease, you're probably going to think about that same genetic tendency for pelvic floor issues, which is why I think it's really important to ask your parents, did you have a hernia? Because even just hernias are going to increase our risk of pelvic floor issues. Okay, sorry, got sidetracked. I can't go to the doctor currently to get further testing anyhow. I know, right? This time is hard. Are there any yoga moves that I can do to make my bladder more relaxed? Okay, so this is a great question. I am really sorry you're having to go through this. This can be just painful and awful and just really distracting from life, when, especially right now, you probably want to focus on life. Okay, so one of the things that when you are back to seeing somebody, make sure when you go to the doctor, you get a referral for internal pelvic floor PT in your area, because this can be something that can respond really well to internal release work, bladder mobility work. Get in there, move things around, help release muscles, because when muscles are tight, they press on nerves, and this can increase pain. And so you want to get somebody to get in there and move things around. Now, moving things around too much can be a problem. Somebody who is too aggressive with internal release can actually make you a little worse. So make sure you go to see somebody who has a lot of experience. I think for just this particular issue would be really good, or somebody who trained under somebody with lots of experience, somebody that you trust. So ask around. Hopefully your doctor has a good recommendation. Feel free to email me. I can see if I know anybody in the area. I'm happy to help you out. And so if I can, so I would find somebody when this lets up that can help you with some internal release and knows what they're doing. As far as yoga poses go, happy baby pose is wonderful, because you're just gonna open the pelvic floor, you're gonna relax. Child's pose can be really great, or child's pose where you stick your bottom up in the air can be really great, especially if you have any kind of front prolapse. It's maybe increasing this irritation because things are a little bit displaced. Then the happy baby pose where you stick your bottom in the air can just help things kind of fall forward and up. So that can be a very relieving position. Propping your bottom up on pillows too as well can be a very relieving position to just help de-stress. Lots and lots and lots of deep breathing. Okay, lots of deep breathing. You want to feel your pelvic floor move on every inhale. All right, so feel that give, feel it move. Abdominal massage can be incredibly good if you have a pelvic floor PT in your area that is maybe doing pelvic health via telemedicine. As physical therapists, we can't cross state lines for giving physical therapy. So you can check out a PT in your area that you want to build that relationship and trust, and they might be doing telemedicine. They can talk you through some abdominal massage. That can be really helpful. The other things that I want to kind of get you thinking about are no lower abdominal work. I would not get on an ab routine right now. That is probably going to really irritate you and make you a lot worse. So no lower ab contractions, no kegels. I would not contract your pelvic floor right now. You need to be all about relaxing, all about releasing, all about letting go. Eventually I would work through hip strength. I would work on getting your femur back in the socket. You might want to check out my Happy Hip series. I've got a femur stretch where you can move the femur back in the socket. Sometimes that can help create space. Get your psoas to calm down, which interplays in that area. So a kind of a, I don't want to say a tight psoas can cause this because I don't want you overly stretching your psoas. Because it's usually tight for a reason, because it's guarding, but psoas relaxing things can be very helpful to help calm that down. And then strengthen once the irritation goes down, and then continue to work on deep breathing. Okay, so hopefully that will help. Try those yoga poses, see if that makes you any better. Okay, question number 6, how to improve, minimize diastasis and prevent re-prolapse while pregnant. Great question. Pregnancy is not a time to check out. It is not a time to just be like, all right, I'll figure it out when I'm done. This is the perfect time to work on things. And if you didn't start working on stuff before you got pregnant, now's the time to work on it when you're pregnant. Okay, so I think this is a great question. Right, so big picture, you are worried about pressure management. You're worried about pressure going out, making your diastasis worse, and you're worried about pressure going down, making your pelvic floor worse. So you need to manage pressure. All right, we have a whole pregnancy section that Anna Tina has helped with, that physical therapist I mentioned earlier, because she is a birth prep specialist. She helps with birth prep in Switzerland. So I think it's really cool just to get an international look at the pelvic floor and international advice, not just U.S. school of thought, which I think it's just pretty cool. Okay, so pressure management is imperative for you to work on. I go into a lot of details on that in an interview with Laura. Laura was a woman who worked through my diastasis program. She is amazing. She is such a go-getter. But so I sat her down and did an interview because we worked on healing her diastasis. She's 5 kids. We worked on healing her diastasis. And then she got pregnant again, and she wanted to minimize her diastasis, and she went through this last pregnancy with the best results that she's had yet. So I think that's really telling and really awesome and cool. So I sat her down and I'm like, okay, talk me through everything you did, because I think this is really a great just story of hope for women, that they can improve through subsequent pregnancies. So that interview is on YouTube. And I will link that in my stories and my bio, my live call, so that you can check that out. So interview with Laura on YouTube. And then there's an interview with Jennifer Stone. Jennifer is my mentor. She heads up the Evidence in Motion Pelvic Floor Physical Therapy Program, and she is such a smart woman. And I love her, and I set up regular calls with her to be able to ask her questions like, hey, I saw this. Here's what I'm thinking about doing. Do you have anything I should know about, we should add? How do I approach this? So she has been such a great resource for me for continuing to further my knowledge, and I'm very appreciative of her time. But I sat her down because Jennifer is not afraid of anything. She is such an incredible woman. And so I sat her down for an interview on pregnancy and delivery after prolapse. Okay, so she went through everything that you should worry about, what you shouldn't worry about, and this interview is on YouTube as well. And so she's great. So I will link that interview for you as well. So I think both of those interviews are going to make you feel a lot better about your pregnancy with managing prolapse and diastasis. Okay, good luck and congratulations. Okay, question number 7. Hi, 2 years postpartum. I had 3 kids in 2.5 years. I have urinary incontinence while jumping, but more importantly, getting back into running and having pelvic pain. This happened over the summer, so I switched up my exercise to boot camp classes. Now, with being quarantined, I'm trying to get into running again and notice the same pelvic pain as before. Also get terrible knee pain from IT band. I feel like an old lady. I'm 34. All right, please tell me there's something I can do. Any suggestions would be welcome. Yes, there is so much you can do. But oh boy, this is a lot to unpack. Okay, so hip issues can cause pelvic floor issues. So it could actually be the fault of your hip that you're getting leaking and not your pelvic floor. Because I'm sure you probably tried things like kegels, you've probably been doing pelvic floor contractions, and they're probably not helping, I would guess, from your story. And so what we would want to do is we want to look at the hip. We want to look at specifically what's going on in your IT band area, because that's where you're getting pain. Now, where you're getting pain isn't always what's causing it, which can be an interesting rabbit hole to get down. But the TFL, tensor fasciae latae, is a muscle that sits on the front of your hip. And your glute maximus, which is in the back, both those muscles come together to form your IT band. And I like to think about this as a muscular tug of war, and you get to see who's winning. And usually when the glute max is not doing its job and pulling enough of its weight, literally pulling enough of its weight, then the TFL has to take over a little bit more, since they are both attaching to the same structure. And that can often cause IT band pain. So usually if I can get the TFL to calm down, the glute to step up a little bit more, IT band pain is gone. Now, there's a lot of other factors that goes into that, including pelvic positioning, pelvic control, and so then you're going to be looking at adductors, you're going to be looking at hamstrings, you're going to be looking at abs. I'm also wondering what's when you're doing your exercises, what your breathing system is like, how much you're guarding your pelvic floor, do you have any pelvic floor tightness? So I have lots of questions, lots and lots of questions, lots of things that I would like to look at as far as needing to be determined whether your pelvic floor is tight or it's just weak or it's weak and tight, how to approach that. So if you have a physical therapist that you love in your area, please work with them. This is what we do for a living. We solve these problems. I didn't get a doctorate and then additional education after my doctorate. This is what we do, okay? So there's no need for you to just be dealing with this. And maybe if you went to a bad PT, not everybody in a profession is the same. You know that. You wouldn't just hire any old contractor. You wouldn't probably just go to any old surgeon. You wouldn't go to just any old dentist. So there's definitely discrepancies, because it's all based on experience and then how much effort you put into further learning and things like that. So if you did go see a physical therapist and you were not happy with the results that you got, go see somebody else. Okay? You're worth it. You're worth it. Keep trying until you find somebody good. Don't just give up. Don't just say physical therapy didn't work. But that's not what you're saying, so I'm guessing you haven't been yet. And so what I would suggest for you to check out for my stuff is I would suggest for you to check out doing a kegel. So that article, it's going to be linked to my life bio and my stories. So I would make sure that you are contracting the front of your pelvic floor when you contract your pelvic floor. So that can be a big one. I would also check out the free Happy Hips series, because it's called Happy Hips for a reason, and your IT band is a big deal for the hip. It is the lateral support for your knee. So the other things you're going to want to look at with that are what's going on with your foot and arch strength. That can also play a big role here, and basically how that whole system comes together. Okay, I know that's a lot, but there's a lot of hope for you. I think you're just going to have to dive into learning a lot more. So those would be the two places that I would start if I were you, and I would dive in and start learning. But I do think you have a lot of hope to get back to running, jumping, and doing whatever you want without leaking, and definitely without IT band pain. So I think that's just going to take a little bit more work. Okay, question number 8. Getting back to running 10 weeks postpartum, is it normal to be sore in the perineum area after? I'm going to go with yes and no. I'm going to say yes, some soreness can be normal if you haven't done enough prep work first. I prefer to start people with strengthening and getting their pelvic floor fully ready to run, so that we don't have to deal with that. So that tells me that you might not be quite ready for running on that end. So what I would like for you to do is, I just posted some strength tests on Instagram last week. So I will link those as well, so that you can find that swipe up real easy. But try the strength test and see where you end up. So if you go to land for running and your glute medius isn't strong enough, your glute max isn't strong enough, and you get a little bit of excessive hip drop, your pelvic floor is going to have to compensate for that. Your pelvic floor is in the middle. It is the master compensator. So the weaker your glutes are, the weaker your adductors are, the weaker your abs are, the weaker your glute medius is, then the more, and arches, I can go on. And we get all this ligament laxity with pregnancy. So our muscles have to be 5 times as strong to compensate for that. And so the pelvic floor is the master compensator. And so you might be overworking your pelvic floor to compensate for weakness in other areas. So just check your strength. Some people are plenty strong enough to run at 10 weeks and they feel great running, and it's all good. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't run. I'm just saying that I would love for you to make sure your body is ready to run. That is what I'm saying. Okay, the other thing to think about here is, did you tear at all during delivery? Because if you did tear, you might need some scar release. If you have an internal pelvic floor PT in your area, that is going to be the person that is going to help talk you through that scar release. So I would call and make an appointment with them and get some scar release to help with that. All right, so hopefully that will give you some rabbit holes to jump down for your thinking for helping to relieve this soreness after. You can also try lying on the floor, using a frozen bag of vegetables or an ice pack, putting your legs up the wall, that kind of good stuff for helping to relieve some swelling, relieve some pain. But I think your question was more directed at, is it normal and can I prevent it, instead of how do I get rid of the pain once it happens. Okay. Question number 9, hip pain please, and lower back and hip tight. Started as a hip menopause. All right, menopause, that great hormonal changer. I like to think of menopause just like I like to think about the pregnancy and postpartum period. You're having hormones that are changing your ligament structure in your body. It's not fair. And so you have to be double strong to be able to combat that, just like somebody in the pregnancy and postpartum phase as well. So what I would do for that, to send you down a good learning track, is I would check out the free Happy Hip series. It is a 6-part series. I would check that out so that you can just learn more, learn what needs to be strong. So head back to question number 1, because that was a good question about hip pain, and listen to that, because I go through a lot more there about kind of how you should structure your workouts, and that Happy Hip series for giving you more education. So I think that would be really good for you to check out. All right, so give that a watch. Question number 10, how do you relax an always clenched pelvic floor? Diagnosed by my GYN and a PT, but was unable to continue therapy. Okay, so this is tough. I've got a couple of suggestions written down here for you, but you've got to look at it from both a physical side and an emotional component side. So both of those are equally important when we look at healing the body. All right, I don't think that we should be all physical, even though I'm a physical therapist. I think there's a huge emotional, mental component to seeing improvements in the body. I also don't think that things are all mental. I think there is also a huge physical component. So when you put the two together, you get the best results. So for the mental side, what I want you to do is, if you are not meditating, do not laugh that suggestion off. Start meditating today. Give me at least 10 minutes a day where you lay on your back, you relax, you focus on your muscles letting go and sinking into the floor. Put on some relaxing music. Just do it. Meditate. And if you say you can't meditate, that means you need to meditate more. That means you need 20 or 30 minutes a day. All right, so just it's good. You can start with some walking meditation. If you have trouble with just regular meditation, there's lots of good books like Meditation for Fidgets, for fidgety people, fidgets, I don't know, I'll have to look that up and link it for you. But there's all sorts of books on meditation to help you get into meditation if you're having trouble. But meditation is one of those things that is probably the best thing to help with pelvic floor tightness. Build your awareness. Check in with your pelvic floor all during the day. So check in. What is your pelvic floor doing? If it is clenched, let it go. You can build so much awareness around realizing when a muscle is clenched and letting it go. And that is the mental side. So are you holding your pelvic floor clenched because of tension, anxiety, and stress? Or are you holding your pelvic floor clenched because your pelvic floor is having to overwork to compensate for weak muscles in other areas? Now, the pelvic floor is a master compensator. I've mentioned that already on this Q&A call. So if you are weak, glutes are weak, adductors are weak, abs are weak, your poor pelvic floor could be picking up the slack. And that could be one of the reasons why it is so tight. C-section scar, any other scar tissue, you might need to release that. That can be a contributor for pelvic floor tightness. So figuring out why your pelvic floor tight. Now, I have a couple links for that. I have a blog post on common breathing mistakes. Every inhale should go down. Every inhale should attempt to touch your pelvic floor. I find people with pelvic floor tightness, they can't feel their inhale get to their pelvic floor. But darn it, you are going to try to get every inhale down to your pelvic floor. Do not let your inhale go up into your neck and shoulders. And you might need to breathe in front of a bathroom mirror for a while to make sure you get that. Lie on your back when you're meditating and work on just belly breathing. Not always a huge fan of belly breathing, but in this case, I think trying to get that down is a good way to start working on your deep breathing is a good idea. So check out that. For meditation, I also have a blog post on figuring out why your pelvic floor is tight and fixing that. So I will link that in the swipe up and in the bio as well. So be sure to read that because there can be lots of layers of factors here, both from the emotional side as well as the physical side. I'm not sure which one you need to work on more, depending on your history and all that good stuff versus muscular weakness, but I do know it's usually a combination of both of those. Okay, question number 11 is 19 months postpartum. I don't leak or have pelvic floor issues, but since having a baby, I feel like I make weird noises from my vagina, like loose, flappy sounds. Don't think it's queefing, but I have no idea. I know, weird and very personal, but very curious. I love this question, and this is why I mentioned the questions to be kept anonymous, because it's this kind of stuff where we're just wondering, like, what is that noise and why is that happening? And not sure who to ask because I might not warrant a whole appointment with someone. So I love it. It was a great question. I still think that is a little bit like queefing, where you're getting some air in, so you're getting a little bit more movement than normal, and so there's probably either a little bit of pelvic floor tightness. I can find front pelvic floor tightness tends to make more of that air bubble feel. Maybe not necessarily noisy per se, but it can be noisy, and that can go hand in hand with maybe a little bit of front prolapse. So maybe it's a rabbit hole to dive down for you, but I would look at good breathing. You might need some internal release work. You might need just breathing. That might do the trick. Abdominal massage to help move things around and have them feeling great. Or you might just need a little bit of strengthening. Okay, so I would say that's probably more. Things are just a little bit on the loose side, and then once you get them a little bit stronger, increasing that muscular tone, then you probably are going to stop that. Whew. Okay, I am going to take a break here from questions because I just looked at the clock and the kids should be headed back in any second now, and so I hope this was really helpful. Thank you so much for submitting questions. I will be back next week with another round of questions, hoping to answer them very thoroughly and direct you to the best resources that I can for your questions. So thanks so much for joining me. I really appreciate you guys being here and listening, and I will see you next week.